Welcome back to our part 2 of our special episode with Thabiso Mongane. Warning, this episode does contain information about rape. Thank you for watching, and we hope that if you do continue to watch, you enjoy this episode.
I haven't been through what you've been through. Let me ask you this. Having been through what you've been through, how would you actually protect your kids? How has that actually altered your response?
I think being through what I've been through, it's hard. For me, like I said to you, like it took some time. One thing that I don't think is mostly known or spoken about is how you lose yourself. You lose your sense of identity when something like that happens to you. You just don't know who you are anymore, and you try to find yourself. And you try to, sometimes, I was like, okay, I'm going to try to find myself in the people that I knew loved me or cared for me. And that also doesn't feel right because you're both humans and you're both in a different place in your lives. And it's straight. Like, I'm going to talk about relating now to men, right? I think that's been a very difficult sense or part for me. But I think it would be even worse if I didn't have the male friends that I had in that time, I think. Or my uncles. For me, I've always been a girl who's an uncle's child, and a lot of in society, like it's very like, oh my gosh, uncles are dangerous. But I've been always under the protection of my uncles, taking care of my uncles, and being an uncle's uncle girl, and I think being raised with so many, influences. I had a lot of influence from my uncles, and it's a patriarchal influence as well. So what plays into my character is I'm probably more, more patriarchal, I guess, in how I deal with things or how I see the world. Then I would be more matriarchal or more masculine rather. I'd be more masculine about how I go about my time in the world because of the heavy influence of my uncles. Then I would be more feminine about it. And when something like that happens to you, it sets you into a world. Who are you? What happens now? How do you men relate? How will men relate to me? Will I be? And you start to blame yourself. You start to carry a lot of things. Am I damaged? Am I seen as damaged? And it's a struggle, and there's a lot to get into. And I don't know. Like it took me a really long time. I remember like a few days after it happened, a guy friend of mine came to my house and wanted to see me, or I bumped into him. He didn't know. I was acting very strange, and I was just like, I need to get home. And he just didn't understand what was going on with Thando, and I'm acting very weird. But now I just have this certain, oh my god, I don't trust men in that sense, or I don't want to be seen, I don't want to be looked at, I don't want men to look at me because I feel like, am I being sexualized all the time? And you're just hyper aware of just the male gaze. And that was a terrible way to live, to be honest. And then how you interact with men. I haven't been in a relationship. That happened literally the same year, like I broke up with my ex, like a few months later, and then that happened. And it becomes harder to relate with someone. You're just like, would you tell them this? Is this something that will see you differently? Do you want them to see you as a person and not just as, he'll go there. This happened. And it's really hard. Like, even something as simple as dating becomes hard. And now you start to, dating is hard for me because I'm just seeking something deeper in any case as a person. And when you don't get that, you're just like, ugh, I'd rather not do this. Let's avoid all of this. So it changes you more than you thought. Even like just relating. So for me, it was just like, oh, okay, I can trust my exes. Make it about this at some point. And they're human too, and they have their own things. And when you come together, you just like, it's not.
To the disconnect.
It's not working because it didn't work in that time.
For a reason.
For a reason. And it's hard. It's harder. And then when you think about having children or a family, that's just a different thing as well. Like, it's a lot. It's not just one event that happens to you and then, yes, life goes on, but it shifts your whole reality. The things you even start to care about. I know it for me, it happened in a time where people were very insensitive, and there was a lot of like rape jokes at the time, and like, and how I started to see some of my male friends. It's like, why would you joke about this? This is where maybe before I would have overlooked something like that, and your whole view shifts as a person, and it's for the best sometimes, and sometimes it's not for the best. So it's a lot. It's a lot to navigate after.
I hold like the perspective that, like I've been saying, first and foremost, it enrages me to think that somebody would really have the balls, and I'm going to be as bland as I possibly can, the balls to think that they can actually violate someone like that and get away with it. You see, with me, it's not so much the audacity, but so much the
it is the audacity.
No. The audacity is something that obviously people are opportunistic by nature.
Yeah.
What really bothers me is the arrogance that comes with knowing that you're going to get away with it. For me, that's where it changes, and it really just turns you into an animal that must be dealt with accordingly. So, no, I'm a man, and I'm thinking about all the females in my life and how I would take it if they had to actually go through anything that you've been through or something like that. My response to that, and I know you're quite finicky about
no violence.
No, definitely violence.
Okay, I understand.
There would definitely be a couple of corpses that actually just turned up somewhere, and I'll be prepared to actually just give my life up for that. You know why? Something that's very important to me and part of my identity is my ability to be able to protect the people that I love.
And as a man, you are innately created to protect.
I think that it would be a violation to me, and not taking away anything, taking anything away from the victim, but it would be a violation to me, the fact that somebody thinks that they've actually got the balls, the audacity, the gall, the arrogance, to think that they can come and violate something that I care about and get away with it. Because it's an indictment on me. Like, dude, you can't protect the people you love.
It's not like, I completely understand it from like as a man, and I had family and I had friends in the same situation who felt the same. And I'm not going to get it up in women, obviously, but then I get it. It also felt, a bit the same for me. Like, oh my gosh, why wasn't I not vigilant enough? Why wasn't I, aware? And it's.
I don't think you can ever blame yourself for that. And I know that it's a part of the process. It happens.
Yeah.
But I don't think, and I think you realize in retrospect that it had nothing to do with you. There's nothing you could have done better.
I mean.
No.
Okay, yes. But I mean.
What I'm saying to you is essentially that you should be able to exist in a society that it doesn't matter where you are, who you're with.
Yeah.
To be safe. You've got a right to be safe the same way that men do. And let me tell you how I came to this conclusion. So, one time I was coming from work, right? And I wasn't driving at the time. When I was at Westgate, right? It's just, So I was like, no, man, let me just, take a Uber home. No, that guy decided to walk it. So I walked and I walked and I walked and I walked and I walked. And it's like in the evening, man. Like started walking from around after 6, 7-ish.
That's
like,
a risk.
Well, not for me.
In that area, yes, it is for everyone.
No. Look, I'm at the age now where I'm very confident about my safety. I know that I can defend myself.
It's a risk.
And this is also going to just hit home to the point that I'm about to make. Now, you can imagine me deciding to walk from Westgate to Linden Haven is non-consequential for me. I literally take a walk and I feel extremely confident in the fact that I'm not only going to get a car, dude. Thando, the beautiful part, and it's a different story for you because I think that you've experienced different things, but
I have, especially in the same walk.
no, no. It's happened to me, and Bumaka is not only quite younger, but I've become a man, and a very formidable, mind you. And being formidable as a man means that I've got very little concerns about my safety.
Really? I wish it could never, as a woman in this country, no.
Getting home to that point is the fact that I'm walking home. There's a lady who stays on the same street as me who somehow kind of saw me. And for me, I only realized, like, what was it? Maybe around 500 meters into the walk, that she's actually trying to actually keep up with me so that she's got proximity, so that she knows she's insulated in that kind of environment. We've never spoken to this lady, but she knows you. Yeah. So it hit me then to say that, John, this is the woman doing to me.
Yeah.
As she walks past, right? So inherently, when I realize that that's what's happening, I start slowing down. So she can catch up. And I say to her that that's fine. You can walk in front of me so I've got full view of you. I want to have full sight, right? And then I can react. Because when you're behind me,
anything can happen.
Anything can happen. Like, walk in front of me, keep a safe walking distance in front of me, you know. But then she says to me that, sure, it's around 7:30 at the time. I'm like, hey, dude, and I still have to get home and cook for that meal. And it hits me in that moment to say that, yeah, man, I just problematic.
Very.
My nigga, you could have taken a walk
and met
and walked with her,
halfway.
and it would have been such a beautiful thing. You guys would reminisce on it to say, hey, babe, you know, you used to come and walk and walk with me, blah blah. I'm like, this asshole is sitting at the house,
and then she has to come back and cook.
I've learned that they've got like 3 kids or something like that, and I get it that walking with boys and whatnot is a problem, but man up. Leave the kids with your neighbors for legit 20 minutes, 30 minutes and say, look, I'm coming back, I'm just going to fetch that one. I'm coming. Watch this one for me. Literally. Go take your wife or your girlfriend. She still needs to get home and cook for your ass. And I was like, this situation will never come right. You see, where my reference points are quite accurate. This situation will never come right. And again, what's he doing? He's benefiting.
Yeah, no, he is. He just chills.
So what's the incentive for him to change his behavior? Benefiting? Uncomfortable. Still has to change. As long as it's not me.
That's insane. That's kind of insane. Like I just know. Like the first time when we went to New York and we decided like. It was actually kind of like a mind switch, and I'm not saying like there's no crime there is, but like to have your phone out in the street is not as panicky as I'm in the streets in Joburg and I have my phone out and anything might happen. Or walking at night, I think we had like one walk in the 8 ends. It's not like, oh my gosh, I might be like raped, kidnapped, something. As hard as it is in here, like I just come back from work, and if I probably caught the taxi late or whatever, and it's like it's dark now, winter time, it's 6. I was walking in town, and it was still a bit bright, and I was walking to my taxi, and literally the man in front of me was walking, and these guys came and they rushed and they just held him down, took his bag, took his phone, and I was traumatized. And I just ran because I was like, what what's gonna happen if this man can't defend himself? What about me? What about my ass, who is a woman of this man's size, and these 3-4 criminals got at him, and it was just so traumatic. And I had to get home. When I got home, I'm going to stay at the garage or at Westgate, and I'll be like to my mom, "Oh, please come fetch me or get an Uber to go home," because me walking at 6 or 7, it does not work, because
But that's the environment that this country, that's what we're created in this country. The fact that our mothers and sisters, our aunts, our grandmothers, are absolutely not safe. Our kids are not safe.
yeah.
But just, for me, it's a violation completely of your rights. It's a violation completely.
Yeah.
That's why I feel that this needs to be meted with such a harsh hand, so that men understand that you do not want to be put on the receiving end of that, because there is no consequence.
They go to jail and come out.
The guy I was explaining to you was actually, appearing in court. Apparently, he's actually got loads of serial rape cases behind him. Ask me what the hell was he doing out and about?
Because there was no protection.
Guys, no one is gonna come and say, I'm gonna tell you that much. The only thing that women have is women. And women need to realize that the word woman on its own is exactly the power that it is. It needs to be active. I don't understand how you guys are still little dabbing with that idea. I take it to the bus. You touch my blood, you touch my family. That's where we're gonna meet you. And not for any other reason, not because I'm a violent man. I'm not a violent man, but the fact that I know the society that I live in, the country that I live in, and just the limitations and consequences on its own. It means that I must be comfortable enough with knowing that I was actually a victim. My wife was a victim. My daughter was a victim. My child was a victim. And there's not a damn thing I can do about it. So we have a law that actually disempowers us. That's exactly what our law does.
Yeah, because you're like, oh my gosh, there's nothing I can do. The law processes. Yeah.
The law, and I think that's, part of why it's so problematic to actually be a South African. I'm very optimistic about, what the potential of this country can yield, but I'm also realistic about where we currently are. We're in the dogs, bro.
We are.
So, I don't know, man. Maybe I hold such a harsh position, but I'm quite sober about these things.
So then, when it comes to mental health and men's mental health, what do you see as? I mean, we're all human and we all go through things, but there's been a rise in suicide with men. And what do you think is the biggest contributor to men seeing their way out as suicide instead of
It's the pressure.
therapy?
It's the pressure. And I think I captured it quite well when I said that women have this incredible ability to be a singular entity wearing multiple hats, playing multiple roles, and coming back to the singular entity at the end of the day. That becomes the frame of who you are. Men don't operate. And it's driven by the pressure of society, the pressure of our families, the pressure of, women. You want to be competitive in that space too, where you are the guy, you've got the hottest girl, you've got blah blah, blah blah, and blah blah, And what that leads is that it leads to a conflict and major contradictions in who you are. And I explained it to her. I was like, look, I've been in a position where, looking back retrospectively, and some of the people I've kept in company,
Not the best decisions.
never mind the best, we're just not meant to be in each other's company. We just never were.
Yeah.
The fact that we were was by measure of my own life's process, trying to actually bring me closer to, like I said to you in the car, bringing me closer to the beginning.
Yeah. To be
Who I am who I was meant to be, who I am perpetually. And that's the real reason why I think, you know, men's mental health is such a great area. For the mere fact that it takes us such a while to reconcile all of these things, all of these, you know, personalities that we play. And finally, when we come to a point of actually reconciling them, some men can't live with what they see in the mirror. And sometimes society doesn't allow us to live with them.
That's true.
And for me, that's where you really have to be a special kind of man who can really be humble and I think sincere enough to just accept that I can't do this for anyone else anymore. I have to start doing it for myself. Show up for myself and take it a day at a time. I've had my own little stint with, you know, mental health. I have my way of actually dealing with it.
How do you deal with it?
The best thing for me is to keep my mind preoccupied in other things. It's our work.
Avoidance?
No, it's not avoiding it. For me, what it is that it's also just proverbial. You know, the devil finding work for idle hands. Blah 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 blah. I don't think it's avoiding it. I think it's not giving myself or my brain and my spirit and my physical state the time and the space to be void. One thing that I've recently been learning is how to actually deal with failure, for instance.
How do you deal with failure?
I accept it as a fundamental part of every other win and success that I'm actually going to make. I realize and I reconcile failure with a process of really just trying to show me that something is not fitting and I need to actually just, you know, problem solve around it. So I think failures are indicators that there's still problems that need to be solved. And once you actually just keep solving them, you'll get to the point where you've actually solved it and you'll get the right result. I hold the same sentiment as a lot of very, very, very popular and I think incredible, ingenious billionaires. Elon Musk is one of them, who actually, you know, always likes to go on about how our schooling system teaches us that failure is bad. But real life requires failure as a natural consequence of success.
Yeah, that's true.
So when you reconcile these things, you start to realize that no, you're not going to get successful if you don't fail.
Yeah.
Then what was the test? What was the actual test? What was the thing that you had to overcome for it to really be deemed a success? So the word success is inseparable from failure.
What do you now deem as success? I know we spoke briefly about you changing how you see success from the expectations of what people have told you what success is and what you see it as for yourself now.
I think for me, success is conquering yourself, conquering your fears, your doubts, conquering the moments when you're tempted to quit. I think it's overcoming all of your bad habits, replacing them with good ones. I think the success is incremental, it's not exponential. I think that what it might look like at some point is, you know, this big exponent of, you know, some major event that happened in your life, but that's not what happens. I think that you essentially continuously always drive yourself into this overcoming yourself, overcoming, you know, your urges to quit, your urges to not do it. But I think, again, for me, the biggest attribute that I would actually deem as a success attribute to me is the impact that I've made in the world. Many people, like I said, I don't think making money is a bad thing.
Yeah, it's not. I agree with you.
No, but I'm not one of those people who does things for the money.
Yeah, I'm not either. I've realized now. It's taken me a long time, but yeah.
The thing is, it's for me, it's never been how I've thought of myself. Maybe some other people might have thought, this guy, hey, he's a money guy. No.
I've never thought about you like that. Funny enough.
No. A lot of people will look at me like, this guy, you see, that's making money and all that. No, I don't give a shit about it. You know what I'm absolutely crazed about?
Making a difference.
What I'm fanatical about?
Making a difference.
I'm fanatical about making a difference, but more so I'm fanatical about finding my purpose.
I mean, but that's who you've always been. Like for me, that's what has stood out through the years. I know, like we've said that, like, journeying through life is just coming back to yourself again. But for me, and conversations we've had as children, like it's crazy because we were children, but that's who you've always been. As that's been your essence, and your essence has shown that you care about people and making a difference.
It's painful. It's a very, very painful thing.
It is a very painful thing. Because people will use you in the process.
Maybe I'm accounting for, or this account of my testimony is really just emanating from the times I'm living in. Maybe my grandparents or my parents will actually have, share the same account. But I think we're living in a very crazy time where, dude, human beings are so strange now.
I don't think it's different. I think, humanity is a lot right now, but I think the things that, especially with what happened with the pandemic last year, and having not to be at home or be stuck at home or being, things kind of shifted, and like the things that mattered aren't superficial things, like the Instagram live or your bag, but it's genuinely connecting with people, and people needed to connect all the time, and that's why you saw the many lives and on Instagram and whatnot, because people at the end of the day always are seeking to connect with people. And when you are operating in your purpose, you are operating from a place of impacting or helping people. And it may look different for you, it may look different for me, but ultimately your purpose is always people centered or people impacting. And that's why you have the business that you have. Do you want to talk about your business?
Yeah, I can. But I think my business is just a consequence of just, the purpose I have. I wanted to actually ask you the question. So, what do you think is a requisition or a requisite attribute of connecting with people?
I think being authentic. I think I've always seeked to connect to people, which is very wild in a sense. How you've always said that, like, my one thing has always been connecting. And I didn't even realize that for the better part of my adult life, teenage life, But for me, it's just connecting with people is just listening and being authentic with a person. Like, sometimes I'm not even looking to connect to people. I am very human, and very human Thando, she does not like, sometimes she just don't want to hear your story. Sometimes I don't care, because I'm going through a lot. But then sometimes I find myself in places where, a person sees something in me and they want to offload. And I'm just like, so why me? And there's just, I guess there's something about me as a person, but I will just sometimes just listening to a person, listening to them about who they are, what's going on in their life. Sometimes it's a 50-year-old man in a taxi that just needs to offload about them having this one dream and it's not working out, and you're just the voice of reason to be like, don't give up. You care about this, why don't you work it this way? It's just, connecting is just about listening to someone. Listening beyond your own agenda or trying to be this influential person or this, I don't know. I think sometimes with being an entrepreneur, you try to network your way into things. And as I said to you, with my experience with business development, you try to figure someone out and what they like and stuff like that, and you try to leverage that. And sometimes just being a human and being like, happy birthday, Thabiso. That's enough. And you'd be like, oh my gosh, you remember my birthday? Just the human element of you is enough, and not all these other things.
See, with I agree, but like to the core, like you said, and one of my key takings and key learnings from it was the fact that you spoke about connecting, really requiring sincerity and authenticity. I think that's something that is really lacking these days.
It is.
That's what makes connections so difficult. When in the early stages of my kind of entrepreneurial journey, you kind of listen to the gist of the words around you and kind of the movement around you being like, oh, nah, bro, like, you need to just meet up with people and see what you can get out of them, blah, blah, blah.
And that will lose you very fast.
It will, because you tend to actually forget the component.
Why?
And the component which measures how safe you are in certain spaces. If you're in an association or a band of thieves, there's no honor amongst them.
It isn't.
So you need to actually just posture yourself towards the idea and the reality that someone's going to screw someone. One of the most popular phrases I've heard, in my adult years has been, there's no permanent friends, no permanent enemies. I don't live like that.
That's insane. I've never heard of that, but okay.
How do you live like that?
No,
no permanent friends, no permanent enemies. I'm like,
that doesn't even make sense.
I'm like, how do you live like? How can you generally live your life without knowing who to trust?
That's insane.
And I realized that generally in our generation, we're just geared up to use each other.
Yeah, we are. That's what is being told to us. Get in the space. Go to this place. Sit there. Make sure you stalk this person. Get close to them. Get whatever you need from them.
There's people that I don't care how rich they can be. I don't care what kind of opportunities they can present to me. I'm not prepared to go to business with them. We don't share the same core values.
Same.
We like fundamentally, we don't connect because we don't share the same core values.
Yeah.
We don't share the same principles. We're just fundamentally on opposite polar ends.
And that is okay because they can stay that side. And I think for my journey, I think that's something I had to learn because I realize I'm a very social person. I can socialize myself into certain things, but I've never wanted to. It's never made sense for me to try to get myself into certain things just because I can. I would be miserable. I would be so miserable.
It's the same thing we had.
100% myself over time. I don't understand.
What we spoke about this in the car. Like, look, who's got this proximity to you? All of these circles that seem to be powerful,
it's cool and
popular, and blah 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 blah. But I think where we're failing, maybe, and this is what Kay says to me. Kay says to me is like, my nigga, maybe you're failing to discern the time.
I don't think so.
Because I said to him, I'm like, nah, my dog, you know me. I've got an old soul. Not for any other reason, but for the mere fact that I know where I want to exist in this world and how I want to exist in it.
Yeah.
He says to me that, hey, my nigga, but you know what? At the end of the day, you need to make the bag. So
the bag will come. I think that the problem is, and I think a lesson that was. I spoke to, for me, like I've had dreams and aspirations my whole life in a certain narrative of where I'm supposed to be by this age and breakdowns and stuff like that.
I remember you're always so particular.
And when things didn't happen in that order and in that way, and then I started to have dreams and visions of different things that are completely different to what I had planned, and I said, my family down. I sat my uncles and my mom and my grand about it, and they understood, and they were always like, listen, you're gonna be unhappy if you keep like chasing this one thing and it doesn't work for you. Stick to what this is, your vision and your goal, because you're gonna be very unhappy. And I'm not trying to deal with someone who's unhappy, or you that is unhappy, because we know how you are, you know. And I think is that people have compromised themselves for that bag because it's temporary. And I've had this conversation with a few friends. It's like when you're building something, it's harder for you because you are building. But the reward of building something is gonna last you a lifetime. And someone who just luckily crashes into an opportunity, right? And gets money and crashes to another opportunity.
I don't think it's a lucky thing. I think it's people can actually hack opportune moments that can take advantage of such situations.
Yeah, but you're gonna have to hack for the rest of your life.
And that's what I agree with you. And I don't want you to think that I'm countering that argument. It's in full agreement with what you're saying. I think that I'm just putting more context to it to say that it's, you know, people like to really pose this as being a luck thing. Oh my God, my luck. No, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
I don't believe in luck for the mere fact that
I don't do that too.
it discounts
The work that you
it does. I think that what happens is that, and this is why I said to you that when you asked me about failure, and I said to you that, look, one thing I'm learning how to cope with right now is failure. And really reconciling with the fact that success cannot exist outside of failure. It cannot. So, when I finally do hit my mark, there will be people who are so distant from the story and really distant. That's also how I choose to live my life. Distant from the story, distant from the reality and the truth. That they would actually see it as a luck thing and not really shit. If you knew his story, this was insane. This guy pulled other moves. And that's why it becomes so fascinating to start reading biographies of people who are super successful. And you start learning some of the things that they've been through. You sit there and you're like, wait, what?
I think I'm different in the sense that like I like to share the process, because I feel like one thing I remember a friend of mine was like, when we were in the fellowship, she was like, oh my gosh, you have your shit together, you know, like if you chose like the core business, which was the organization was in its policy, you would be like shining. And I was just like, I do not have my shit together. I have moments where I'm just like, I'm not even sure of myself. What am I doing? Is this okay? Is it working? Is it not?
It's the imposter syndrome, you know?
You know, like there's certain things that I've done. Like I'm just like, you know what? Because we spoke about this like in the car. We were like, just do it, try it, why not? I'm just like, okay, cool. What do I have to do? I'm gonna go and approach this corporate company, and they're a big company, and you know, let's work with it. What are they gonna say? No? Okay, cool. You can move on from it. Like it's something. And then they were like, yes. And it was, and I was like, my mother knows I do not have my shit together because I'll be crying about small things.
She's the one who keeps the shit together.
Exactly. She's like, oh, you're crying about this? Get it together. And I think my grand was the best thing she said to me. I think I was like, probably like crying about not getting something or an opportunity, and she was like, you're the bravest person that I know. One thing about you, you are the bravest person I know, and you're crying about this small little thing.
You even hear how your grandmother actually just views in that sense. That's a powerful.
And that was obviously my grandma's passed now, and that was something I was like, my grandmother thinks I'm brave, me? And I was in awe, and my family is the most affirming of them all. Like,
solid support base.
You can do this. What are you talking about? So I think that people they work hard for these coincidental opportunities. But the thing about these opportunities and having to coincidentally work your way through them, you don't have to do that forever. And I even said to a few friends of mine recently, the thing is about us, we're builders. And when you're building, it takes time. Foundation alone takes time. And for it to be solid.
Not for me, what building does, it gives you the reaffirmation and the confidence to actually defend what you built. That's where you'll see, and you'll hear it in the conversations. Dude, I've met some incredible younger cats than me. I'm very close with a group of entrepreneurs that are just phenomenal. Like 25-year-olds who've got 40-year plans on their businesses. 25-year-olds who are currently in business with the likes of Liberty, Naspers, you name it. These are powerful
24-year-old friends who are doing.
Dude, when you sit down and you speak to these youngins and you're like, dude, how do you know and think the way you do?
Yeah.
And I always say to them, I always say to friends, to Ntak, what always that to say that I love being around you because you make me better. You elevate me. When I'm with you, I feel the need to actually just rediscover my limitations. And when you really hear this, you really just start to believe in all that can be. I mean, my entrepreneurial journey it's always been who I am, and I realize this in retrospect. I mean, I remember we in the 6th grade and we actually had the market day thing and whatnot. And I was with Sam and me and Sam actually doing it together. And I conceptualized the entire business with him. But we actually sold out. I think
you guys did.
it was so quick when we sold out. I couldn't even believe the amount of money I had. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And the essence of it is that I think that I had to actually just reconcile business with purpose and impact.
Yeah.
So my granddad has always been a social entrepreneur.
And he was a preacher.
Yeah.
I still remember.
Exactly. and even before I knew what a social entrepreneur was,
yeah,
this man took his life savings and he decided, obviously against my grandmother's better judgment.
Obviously.
I was like, you asshole, how could you? But the one thing that I realized about the both of them is that I don't want to call them leaders in the community because maybe that's what they might have been, but not how they might have been seen. But what they were is that they were community builders. And the essence of his entrepreneurial journey was that he realized that he had to do whatever he could in his power. As a typical educator, he was a teacher by profession. Also then became a theologist by profession. Becoming Dr. Reverend MD Paper and all of that stuff. But this man knew he existed to serve. He had succumbed to that reality, to that calling, so that this is who I am, is meant to be to serve. And when you see this all your life, and you see a man convicted 150% by this, and his woman or his wife who's equally as convicted by the same thing, with a different standards to how people should actually behave. Because my grandmother was an old BS kind of person.
Yeah.
She was an absolute lady. You had to get up to that level and behave better because she believed that we had it in us.
Yeah.
Like black people had it. We have it in us to behave better. We have it in us to ascend to the pinnacles of just every space.
Yeah.
And that's why she expected it as a typical standard of how you would actually then resonate with her. Now, these two people, specifically my granddad, takes his life savings and he decides that, look, I want to democratize access to early childhood development and early childhood education. Now,
we don't talk about this offline, but okay.
Yeah. And
we've spoken about this years ago, but yeah.
And he does this, and when he does this, I end up actually being a part of this particular business by default. And that's just by doing chores at home, which it looks like chores at home, but what it is that you're actually working in a business. And I start doing chores here, and I start realizing that, there's impact that's been created here. Like there's substance, there's a purpose behind why this man is doing what he's doing. Education is generally expensive, especially at early childhood levels.
Yeah.
And young black single mothers in the township don't have the money to take their kids to a decent place. So their kids end up missing a real fundamental space in terms of their childhood development because of money. And this man is basically saying that he can make it dirt cheap, like doing certain things in a certain way. And I ended up.
That's where you grew up.
I grew up there, and I didn't realize that
That is the fundamental of your upbringing and
of who I am
yeah.
and who I would become, and the impression that it had on my essence and how I just do things, how I view the world. So much admiration for that man. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling. The things I've seen him do, and mind you, these are two people who have managed to travel all over the world, and I mean all over the world. On an annual basis, religiously, these two people would actually travel through community work, travel through missionary work, travel through their own personal kind of pilgrimage that will actually take. It was actually quite incredible to see my upbringing in retrospect, to say that we actually grew up in an open house where you actually had strangers all the time in the house. Some fleeing from some cut that they actually got themselves into, some looking for help, some just stopping by on their journey to another place, and some people who were just taking refuge in the house, for the purpose of, not having anyone else.
So how does growing up with grandparents that are fundamentally so faith-based impacted you as a man and a man of faith now?
It's funny, my story with faith is, hey, it's touch and go.
Yeah, it happens.
No. And I don't mean touching in the sense that, I've been on and off, blah, blah. No. I realize that I've been in an argument with God for a very long time.
Something that you're supposed to be preaching at one point.
And I still think that that's still on the cards. I don't think that's ever been a
debate?
No, I don't think. Well, I like to debate it. But
That's a you thing. That's a you problem.
Yeah,
right?
it's a me
That's
problem.
a circle back.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I like to debate it. But the reality is that it's not debatable.
It's a circle back.
I've realized that this is a non-negotiable.
I'm glad you've realized it. Because we've had this conversation.
This for me was more of a, you have an allowance to go and kind of find out what else is there. But you're coming back, right?
Yeah.
So,
and you have no choice there but to come back.
I sat back and I realized in retrospect to say that there's been different influences in terms of my life, my personal relationships that have had fundamental grounding on my faith. My grandparents haven't given me enough latitude to actually go and kind of look for other things out there.
Yeah.
But circling it back to the one thing that we've grown up with. Both my parents, not necessarily being devout, but being Christian.
Yeah.
So they would do it in terms of just how they grew up. Now we have to go to church. There's no fundamental grounding.
Why?
Yeah. Why are you doing it?
Yeah.
But my mother's always prayed, which is something that I actually respect. And then the rest of my family, which also does it because it was a general expectation and fundamental to how we grew up, how we were raised. Then there's my girlfriend, who, for me, has had such a profound impact on my faith. Through all of what she's been through and all of what we've been through and having seen in a certain state and really just having reconciled truly what she is in my life, which is a miracle. You have to get back to a point where you actually sit back and you think, shit, God has to love me.
Because you guys have been together since high school.
And never mind that, but for the person that she is.
Yeah.
To say that there's why am I so forced to find this crazy, amazing person? And I'm completely content every time I'm with her.
Oh,
So,
that makes me so happy.
so certain things around my relationship have really been for me a testament of God's love for me. And that's how I've actually been able to circle it back. Because Tato, how do I explain how me and Tato and
I mean, I know I was there at that time. I think we've spoken about it. You can share.
I mean, she's Thabiso was baptized on my granddad as a baby. There's an actual picture. And you tend to realize, again, looking
How
back,
God plays his role.
baptized on my granddad, kind of named after my aunt because her mother and my mother were best friends growing up as children. And the family bonds have always been there, right? Now, this is my mother and her mother growing up as children as best friends, but even her dad's family, her dad's aunt always used to think that, my mother would end up on her side.
Me too.
So it's hit. And you sit back and then you realize in retrospect that this woman then was named after my aunt because her mother had met my aunt, my mother's older sister, cousin sister, and she's like, I love your name, Thando, it's incredible, blah, blah, blah. She kind of like, it was a favorite pick, and she kind of used that name on, naming her kid. And all of this ties down into a trajectory, but also a path that was set that clearly has been set before we were even born.
Yeah.
So that means that there's other powers at play. There's another
level
exactly that's
you had no.
We had no idea. We didn't meet, and it wasn't a case of us meeting and being put together by our families.
Yeah.
We met completely independently. We didn't even know that our families are that tied down to each other. Up until our mother saw us at a wedding, a relative's wedding, well, my relative's wedding. But her mother, they had been neighbors of this particular person, and her daughter was getting married. So when our mothers meet there and they realize that we're together and we kind of have our own vibe, they're like, wait, what?
Not your geometric dogs. Was that before?
No, that was way before. So I knew Thando when I was like 15 years old.
Yeah.
We were at a friend's birthday party, and there was still like that energy between us, like, but we kind of played it down because, again, she was afraid of boys. And,
Yeah.
She wasn't looking to actually just be branded. That time I had a bit of a reputation behind my name. Like, hey, you're a hot shot. Ladies man, blah, 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 smooth.
Whatever you do.
Exactly. So she didn't want to get branded, as being one of my victims, and she played it quite smart. But I look back and I always said that it was inevitable.
Yeah.
The gravitational pull towards this person was set in motion long before we were born, long before we even knew that we would ever meet. And you find yourself in a position where you're like, oh shit, we're together? And then being together just confirms all of that. How me and Tato problem solve and how we get around things has always been a fundamental of how we've managed to stay together. And how we get around things is we do it together. There's no you do this, I do this, no. No.
After 13 years.
No. It's together. Everything we do, every issue, every problem we actually have to get around is together. That's non-negotiable. No, Tato, you figure it out. No. We hold hands and we're like, dude, it's going down. Where I don't have the courage, she will step up and really show courage on my behalf. Where, I have the courage on her behalf, I've managed to actually pull us through. And it's that level of dependability on each other. I think that level of trust in knowing that, look, every time I turn around or turn to look over my shoulder, you know that I'm a man apart. There's someone behind me. And that's exactly how it is with me. And I think that, tailing it back again to my faith, she's always been a very faithful and, I think, spiritual individual. But seeing her go through some things where her spirit has been tested, and somehow God has given me the strength
To carry her.
be steadfast and carry her. Time I was young. Like, when I look back, I was like, hey, dog, like, how the hell did you actually stay through all of that stuff, bro? Like, for me, it wasn't even something I thought about. It was just a default thing. My entire existence, my entire being is telling me, you need to be here for it.
Yeah.
You need to be there. But I'm not reconciling with, you're young, you should be out there, blah, 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 blah. And But I think that's what's actually been like for me one of the biggest spiritual landmarks in my faith. Again, like I said to you in the car, life has a funny way of bringing you back to
Your essence. Full circle.
yeah, it does. I mean, you're there, and then you think you've moved so far away, and then it brings you back to
Supposed to be.
yeah. I mean,
Your essence, your childlike person.
the childlike person, but also what has been the biggest references of who you are. I've always believed in love.
Yeah.
Because
You
my-
will always believe in love.
Yeah,
You were Mr. Husband material.
because my reference point for love has always been my grandparents' relationship, where you've seen people who have been together for over 50 years. A weird thing, and I always share this anecdote. You wake up every morning and you start to notice a pattern in how your grandparents move. Right? So every morning, my granddad would wake up first and make his wife a cup of coffee himself. So the first thing she would actually see when she opens her eyes, just turning to a pedestal, is a cup of coffee.
That is so adorable.
But then she has a way of reciprocating this devotion. And this is why I know this as a principle. I use this as a principle in my relationship to say that there's a label of devotion that comes with being in love. That if you don't understand is a prerequisite of being in a healthy relationship, then you're going to struggle.
That's true.
Every day at lunchtime, he comes home from wherever he is in the world. And what he finds is that he finds this woman literally decked out the table for him. Knife, the works, glass, whatever. Having prepared a meal for him. And make sure that he eats a wholesome meal at home. She would beef with you for not wanting to actually do it. Like she would instruct you, no, set up the table, Papa's coming, it's about to be lunch, blah blah blah. Like, no, it's not my husband. Like,
That's your
are you
husband.
crazy? You're telling me my husband is
That's your grandfather.
Exactly.
My husband.
Exactly. You're telling me that my husband is gonna eat just in general, like normal
Yeah.
people. Like,
Like,
are you
please
crazy?
respect me. Respect my
You need to
husband.
respect me. You need to respect me. You need to respect the institution of this household.
Household.
Come here with your nonsense. And you sit there and you realize that there's, like I said, there's a reciprocation of this labor of love that they show to each other. That somehow becomes the reaffirmation that no matter how much they may see the world differently, they're still devoted and love each other. And there's signs, there's physical acts that are attributed to them.
Do you
And there's a
think?
fight.
Do you think people who didn't experience or see that type of devotion or love in their household struggle to try to achieve that or attain that?
I definitely do. I think that we live life according to our reference points. That's the only thing you have to reference, and that's why exposure to certain things becomes so important and fundamental to how you can actually change someone's life as a whole.
Yeah.
My reference points have been phenomenal, I must be honest. I'm very fortunate. But I also come from a household, from my parents' aspect, where the both of them, my parents got divorced.
Yeah.
So you've
Like
got,
all of us, children of divorce.
you've got this super successful relationship.
My grandparents also got divorced,
Exactly.
to be honest. So
Okay,
I have
see,
no.
you're just unfortunate in that sense that the reference point is just that. But in my case,
Zero reference. The reference is different, but generational curses, we have to break them now.
but you have to realize what really has to be put in for you to break. And I always say that people like to say generational curses and then just want to go into marriages for the sake of proving that I can be right in my marriage and we can make it work.
I agree with you because I was in a relationship. I was really young, first of all, like super young. I was like 20 or something. And I think how I went about that because it was kind of like he's younger than me, a little younger than me, and have to prove why we're together. And besides the authentic relationship that we had, it was just now proving to the rest of the world that we can make it, And I mean, he still remains like a very good friend of mine today because whatever we had built was built on a friendship level. But it was just what I realized afterwards, there was this like me, like, and I had to learn from that is that I cannot be with someone where I'm proving all the time. Who am I proving? This is my life. Why am I proving?
It's the both of your lives. It's something you need to. Thando has been so amazing in the sense that her maturity level to how she's always chosen to live her life, I think, has been the guiding compass. And I said this the other day in front of the family. I said that, look, I'm so grateful to you because you've actually been so fundamental in turning me into a man. You've set the standard and you've really set the level on how I should be as a man. I've learned how to be a man a lot of the time from you, from how I've had to actually just solve a couple of things in this relationship and really exist in it. And for me, that is just it's such a powerful thing to actually be with a woman who is so far beyond her years. You know, that she just has the level of compassion, the level of self-introspection, the level of self-awareness sometimes to realize that, like, I'm being a shitty human being. He needs me. You know, she's never cared about what everyone else is doing around her. She's never been that person. She's always just been about, look, dude,
are you good? Are we good?
this is an us thing. This is not a their thing. Yeah, she'll have the times as a woman. She's like, hey, my friends are getting married, blah 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 blah. But I think the conversations between me and that woman are so robust, and I'm fortunate that I have allowed them to be. She's allowed them to be so robust that we can actually just be upfront about things. You know, sincere about certain things too. We're also fortunate that we've actually been around people who have been fronting a lot of things for so long that when we kind of see the truth behind it, we're like, we're not wrong.
Yeah.
And we're not crazy and we're not disadvantaged for kind of doing things the way we're doing. We're cool. Because of the crazy shit that happens around us. And I'm grateful that I've got that reference point. And I must also thank her parents also just, for always being a good reference point for her. Her mother especially is a phenomenal woman. Incredibly phenomenal woman. I think that she's such a sincere human being that she's always just created a very compassionate space for everybody to kind of find expression. And that's just who she is. So I always look at her and I'm like, you know what? When if you're my age, you'd be my type.
Okay.
But she's an amazing woman, and I think that Tato's had a good reference point through her. I think she's sometimes shows signs of being like a mom, but she's also the polar end of a mom. You know, also quite feisty. I think Tato's always been someone who has set the bar high for me. Like, you will treat me a certain way. I deserve your respect. I deserve your protection. I deserve all of these things because I treat myself and I hold myself to the same standard.
Yes.
And that's why, my reference point for how I view women and men dynamics is that I've never been given a free pass, bro. Ever.
You shouldn't be.
That woman is always like,
you shouldn't.
Like, hey. The level of accountability, the standard here is high.
Yeah.
Keep up or ship out.
Yeah.
And it's not a careless thing to say. It's just always been how she... And that's why I treat her the way I treat her. She's demanded it of me countless times. It's something that I respect. It's something that I value. But my grandparents being who they are, the reference point that I've had, my parents' marriage failing, and having the fortunate attribute of, being able to fall back on a super successful relationship. And it's not a relationship that was just successful on the basis of marriage. It was successful on the basis of what it managed to achieve. Exactly. What these two people
achieved in their purpose.
Together.
Because God did. I see it as, when you asked me earlier, so what do you want? No, man. I know I have a purpose in life, and having a partner who does not align to my purpose will set me back. That's what I do. Now that I have been through life and certain things, and I see and I understand my purpose within my faith and within God and within just humanity. And I know that if I don't have a male counterpart who supports as well as compliments, because he has his own purpose and his own journey in life, that it's not gonna work out. So I find it harder for someone who knows themselves to find people who know themselves. Men are lost. Men don't know themselves.
I must be honest with you and say that's ultimately true, because you know why? Because outside of being super
It's not
successful,
required.
no, it is. It absolutely is. It's
Beyond making money, I don't think it is.
the thing is, it's who we're meant to be. It's become so one-dimensional that if you're anything that differs from that, it's unacceptable. That's part of the reason why men do the crazy shit that they do. Outside of being super rich, super successful, wearing the best clothes, smelling like the, Arabian symposium.
There's nothing else required.
No.
And I can't be with someone like that.
That's why we can get away with a lot if we are those things. Because society's saying to me that, look, I just have to be super rich,
Smell good.
and affiliate with other super rich people.
Yes. That's about it. Then you good.
So if I can achieve, and mind you, only one of these, if you achieve one of these, you ultimately then,
You achieve the other.
that's, others are just default. They just fall in line.
Yeah.
So all I need to do is just become super rich.
And then the rest just come.
The rest. That's why men are prepared to steal. That's why they're prepared to corrupt, kill, all of these things.
Destroy. They become the enemy, basically.
Do you know what?
Because the devil comes to kill,
Exactly. Because
kill, steal, and destroy.
there's only one thing, and this one thing creates a level of focus and clarity that makes all your efforts
Channel
to it. And once I do this, then it means that I'm going to get the woman, I'm going to get the respect. I can walk into places, I can do all of these things. But and I say this with no trepidation at all. Society is in dire need of people of substance.
We really do need people of substance, but we look at people of substance as crazy, judgmental, all these things. All these things, these negative connotations, I think, that we look at them as, and I say we as a society, not necessarily me as an individual, but we just be like, oh, you trying to be this person? Oh, please, Thabiso, relax. You know what? They'll be like, Thabiso, relax. No one cares about that.
We grow up and we've seen, there's a certain household that you go to and you'll be told, hey, that's Loba Wale.
Exactly.
So. That's Loba Wale. So. That's because they base their entire identities on substance.
Yeah.
A substantial essence of who I am and what I am known for. Dude, if you're not wearing designer clothes, if you're not driving a car that costs X amount of money, you're nothing.
I don't care about those things, genuinely. Because you can be very empty. Like, I don't understand. Like, I do understand it because it's what's eye-catching and what's coveted in this day and age. But, like, one thing that irritates me is that men who approach you with those things, with material things, like, I've got money. And I'm just like, you must be a very sad man. Because you don't, I think, especially with men, when men approach you with just money or their possessions or their materials or whatever, I think as a woman, for me, this is not every woman obviously, I think you are such a sad little boy because no one has validated you as a human being, that you think that the things that you have validate you. That is a lot of work for me, so I will remove myself from that situation because you are innately saying to me, there is no value to me besides what I besides these material things that I have. Me as a person,
I think we can escalate it a bit further to a very dangerous role, where a man is essentially saying to you that I've got money, how much is your price?
that's also true.
That for me has been, look, maybe it's because I don't care about money. And people can say that, to say that, no, you don't have the money, blah, blah, that's why you don't romanticize this. And no, it's just always been who I am, and that's always been who you are. Like, money should be a consequence of you being able to make an impact.
Yeah.
If I get money, that means
That's even better.
write more checks, you know?
Yeah.
But if I have to shortchange myself in the process of making money, that makes me sick. I have to be able to live with myself. Maybe that's just how I'm hardwired, you know? Now, when a man comes to you and says to you that I've got money,
what's your price? It's basically, what's your price?
and I'm telling you this from a guy's perspective.
Yeah.
That's how guys view. It's not a case of I've got money, please validate me. No, these bastards get money and they automatically think that they're immortal.
That is true. That's very true.
I always laugh with a friend of mine. He's an entrepreneur. He's got a really, really dope startup. And I always laugh when I say to him, "Imali speaks like a yes."
No, genuinely. No, genuinely. I feel the same. I always say
Like
the
he's
same.
speaks like a
Oh,
like this guy is a bar, like a real bar. But he's got money and then he comes and he wants to start calling you a young man and you're like, yo, this guy,
And
bro.
you're like, really?
Oh,
Over some few rands.
dog. You're a moron, first and foremost. You've always been a moron.
You're a moron.
You've always been a mucus eater, first and foremost. But for the fact that you've got money now,
Now we must respect you. And I don't respect anybody. Me. That's me.
look, like I said, it also boils down to how you're hardwired,
Yeah.
your compass inside,
Yeah.
how you believe in yourself, your conviction and whatnot. The biggest thing that's always bothered me about, and this is just how I am, even my level of attraction to women has to be based on this more than it is on this.
Yeah. No, I'm shallow. I won't lie. I'm still shallow. Like, I'm very shallow. Like, I am still shallow.
I've never seen you shallow. I think
Funny enough, you haven't. But I'm shallow. But it gets to a point where you're just like, your looks can't do this for you. You just have to give me so much more. But I'm still shallow. I mean, I'm just not going to be with men that's... That's right.
yeah. Thanks. But for me, it's not about a matter of being with a man that's ugly.
I must be attracted to you.
Look, I can be attracted to so many other things than your looks.
Thabiso, I'm sorry. Like,
I can do that.
I need to be attracted to your looks. But
Nah, don't.
I am that shallow.
You know, when you grow up and you get exposed to,
I have grown up, and I still have grown up, and I've seen beautiful people on the inside. For me, though, I require my partner.
oh no, that's a you thing, you know. But I mean, I just want to draw back to kind of what has become the context of why I kind of like changed my mind on this kind of thing.
I understand.
I don't think I've ever been a
I don't think you have.
a physical presence person.
I've always
Physical
been.
appearance person. I think what's always been kind of like a requisite, kind of attribute for me
Yeah.
has always been your brains. You know why?
You've always said that, funny enough. I even remember when we were like grade 7. Your brains mean...
But they do. You know, it's realizing that there's a potential that when I'm with someone who could have kids.
And this is the
And
woman that's going to raise your children.
Dog. God forbid you're pretty and you're just empty.
You know,
Oh.
my thing is, I'm not going to be with someone who's like pretty and just dumb. I won't. Because just fundamentally of the person that I am inside. But essentially, when I look at you, I have to be like, that's my future baby daddy. Something.
No, look,
You need to help me in the making of these children genetically. I can't carry it.
I really don't. For me, I've realized that what it takes to make it in this world is really someone, and fundamentally, based on, again, your reference point for how you were raised or how you grew up. I need someone's going to impart like some really, really cutting edge stuff.
I agree with that. Like, I genuinely agree with that, because I've seen couples where they don't agree with how raising their children is, and that is a mess. And I'm just like, oh, that's not gonna work out. And and what children will do, they'll manipulate those situations because they're children.
And you see the gap.
Yeah.
I thought for me is like we basically come from the same place. So for me, like, knowing that this is a woman who will teach my kids about life, to somehow know some of the things in my family that I don't know. I was like, how do you know this? Like, no, don't you remember? This is where the weather. So sometimes I out of the bed on this. So this is my cousin. Like, yeah, this is your cousin. This is your cousin. Cousin, what's up? So it's become such a powerful thing to actually have someone like that in my corner, and that's why I think.
Okay, there's some of us who don't have those people in our corner.
My perspective
Sorry for us.
My perspective has really just been around the angle of, look, I have someone in my life who will not only teach my kids about me, but will also kind of impart in them
your legacy.
Exactly. Should impart in them who I am, where I'm from, and what we're about.
That's what's scary to me about men. I don't.
The thing is, I think
see like a man who's gonna. I mean, I have seen a few, obviously.
Look, I'm gonna be quite honest with you. You've chosen a bad time to be single, bro.
It was my choice, to be honest.
No. Not in the sense that you need to be someone. It's just that, dog, you don't have much options. You know that.
I told you, my husband's not in this country.
Yeah, I think, that's the best opportunity.
This country? No.
You need to just divest from South Africa and just find.
No, not in South Africa.
The men in this country are in the dolphins.
No, Jim.
They're the gets, bro. The ghetto.
Ratatata. The men here, ratatata, ghetto.
This is the ghetto.
It really is the ghetto. Trust me, I've been in the dating scene. It's not really good. It's not. It is not.
Even some of the guys that traditionally, like, I've grown up with.
You thought we were good guys?
Nah. You know the edit, but my best friend is also quite a bastard. He's such a good guy.
I'm not at this.
Phenomenal human being. He's a really, really good guy.
But he's a terrible man to women.
He's a woman.
You see what I mean?
But I love him, though. I get it.
That's your friend.
I understand it.
That's your. I mean, I've had friends where I was just like, you're a terrible human person, but
no, he's a terrible male, but he's a great human being.
I get it. I would like. I have guy friends like that. Where I'm just like, you're great. You're great as people, but
and I can tell you why this kind of happened. When
he got hurt. All of us got hurt.
No, it wasn't like you got hurt kind of thing. It's when you're with someone and the expectation is that. Just give me.
I'm gonna like any our episodes into. I'm gonna cut it here. Must I cut it here?